This time in Yerushalmi Pesachim, the article Oz V'Har edition, we're on Daf Pei Gimel Amud Aleph, the second line down, Malish Shazam Mekrach Echad, which in the Vilna is on Daf Samach Tes Amud Aleph, and it's in the wide lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 lines down in the wide lines. So Malish Shazam Mekrach Echad, can you drink the 4 kosos in one bundle? Sounds like it's one after another without any interruption between the 4 of them. So the one answers, Madam Rabbi Yochanan, since Rabbi Yochanan says that Im Shaman, if you heard the lost my place. I'm sorry. If you heard the Shaman, it really should be probably Shma'ah, because going on Hallel, or Shma'o, the Beis HaKnesses, but I guess going on the Kapit Lachtilim of Hallel, Beis HaKnesses Yotza. And you don't need to have, then say Hallel again during the Seder. But that means your kosos is all going to be boom, boom, boom right after another, because they're not going to be staggered by the saying of Hallel. So Adam Rafilu Shasim Bakach Echad Yotza. Even if you to drink them in one bundle, one after another. So, can you drink them in? Now, the simple shot here is like the carbon Ada, that it means drink a little bit. But as my cousin brings down the offer Yerushalmi from the Mechal Maim, that he says the exact opposite. That means that it's a kli. There was a kli gadol which has the name of poskim, and it learns that retiring b'sheni from Esther. Aleph Ches Kasa Rabba was called piskia, and the question is, to drink. Before we talked about drinking them in sequence, 1, 2, 3, 4, but now they are taking one big cup in the poskim cup. Can you do that? So Gemara says, "Klum amru sheyishteh lo sheyishtaker." So why do they say you should drink? Not isn't that you should become drunk? Now drunk, I assume, doesn't mean literally drunk. It means like the psume, like we say by Purim, which means to be uplifted. Let's put it that way. If he drinks it mufusaka, he's not going to get drunk. Now it's clear that going to carbonate, that makes sense because you're drinking them slowly. You're not going to get inebriated in the sense that your mood is going to change in a positive way. Like the Mechal Mayim shot, it's a little bit difficult to understand what it means. You're not going to, I guess, if you drink it too quickly, also it's not going to have that effect. You have to drink it in the gradual way that Chazal meant you to drink it. Matzis b'yanshel shvius can be yotzi with wine from Shemitah. So the Korban Eidah says Matzis b'yanshel shvius means kemet lo karina be'lachem. It's not yours because it's Shemitah is a special kedusha. Ksatay dalek kosos bein lachem kol matzah. Kech den yotzi matzah kach yotzi b'arba kosos. That's the Korban Eidah's pshat. Moshe wants to say that it's because mitzvah lehenos nitnu, although it's not the Bnei Moshe here. Not sure where it's coming from. Bnei Moshe, look, the offer Yerushalmi, according to the Bnei Moshe. But anyway, I don't know where that is. Maybe it's in Shabbos. But anyway, then he says that or Sameach says that it's not really nasa gabe mizbech because the ochel below is sreifa. And the yain of kiddush has to be suitable in Naseh Chagam Mizbech, which is a very nice shot. So Tanya Rabbi Yeshua Yotzim Yain Shel Shvius. Okay, you are Yotzim Yain Shel Shvius because evidently it either doesn't have to be lachem, or it doesn't have to be the yain for the 4 courses. Does not have to be Roy Naseh Chagam Mizbech, or if it has to be Roy Naseh Chagam Mizbech, it has to be the type of wine, which can be Naseh Chagam Mizbech, not necessarily that it the fact that Shvius, although it has different parameters in terms of its halachas of beer and all that, but it doesn't necessarily make it a type of wine which can't be used gabe mizbech. Matzes b'konditon can be used with konditon, which is wine, which is like I think in English in Spanish called sangria. In other words, it's wine which has all sorts of spices in it. Maratay b'kapar konditon kiyain. Konditon is just like wine. In fact, there's spices or herbs in it. It's not a problem. The Amarta, this tells you you can't be Yotze Kunditin. Matzes be ben mezugin, right? What about when they're diluted? Whether they are raw wine, under the wine, or the wine, as long as it has the taste and the look of wine, that is sufficient. And evidently the dilution is more than 1 part out of 4, which we discussed yesterday, because otherwise that is optimal. I'll tell you about where it's diluted even more. The shir is generally understood to be 1 in 6 in order to still be considered to be wine, at least for Ashkenazim. Sephardim could be a different story. Amar Biyamia, mitzvah says behind Adam, mitzvah to be yotzi with red wine. Shema alter yain ki sadam. Don't see wine, which is red. So it sounds like wine is defined as red, which is understood to be mitzvah, meaning mitzvah min amuvcha, not liikuva. Although there are some poskim who say it's liikuva, but who is it? Seems to me that Ramban holds that even Yevin Adiyoti with white wine, but our wine is not considered to be white. White wine is considered for that wine which is actually see-through, not see-through. Sorry, all wine is see-through, but except for the darkest red. No, but wine which is completely clear. That's what I meant to say. Clear, completely clear. And our wine, as long as there's some color to it, that's considered to be reddish. But I forget what the source for that is. But I think there's the Gemara, like one of the Rishonim, I think, says it somewhere, based on a Gemara. I don't think the article brings it down here. Just checking. Oh, he doesn't mean that; just means on Ramban. But I remember that somewhere that our wine was a dinner of red wine, even as long as it's not absolutely clear. Okay. Says the Gemara, Tani, mevushal kidei tevel. Yain mevushal, to in order to be chayav on Hotzah Shabbos, it's the amount of that would serve as a tavlin, because yain mevushal is considered to be a spice. Korbanei does not seem to say. Here it says yain mevushal shitba bishul tam ketavlin. Vushal yosimidai low. There's mevushal is only good if it gives it like a taste like a spice, but not if it's too mevushal. But the Samech says, in fact, he changed the girsa. He says, mevushal kidei litabel, right? And it's going on that sugya in Mesach Shabbos. Okay, so I'm going to ask, yain mevushal can be yotzi yain mevushal, the 4 kosos. You know, yotzi yain mevushal. Rabbi Yonah says you're going to say yotzi yain mevushal. Rabbi Yonah kedaite, famous Yerushalmi. Yeah, it's brought down, I think, in Tosfos in the Bavli. The Rabbi Yonah Shasi Arba say kosoi bele pischa. He used to drink 4 cups of wine the night of Pesach, and then before he came up with this idea of having a mevushal. And the chazik reisha at Atzarta, he had a headache until Shavuos. And there was somebody who had it even worse. Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Loi Shasi Arba so kosei bele pischa b'chazik reisha at Chaga. He had a headache till Sukkot. One day he was seen by a certain noble woman, a point of hearing, and he was seen with a shining, a radiant countenance. I think it's put down the Bible somewhere, no? I guess not. Maybe it's a medrash also. So he meant. This noble woman said, she said to him, Saba Saba. I'm not sure it means elderly here or, Tam B'Chacham. Chaim's lets me in Islach. But you have one of these things. Ishtasi Chamrat, either you drank a lot of wine, and that's why your face is radiant. Or Mavaribis, or you loan money at interest, you make lots of money, that's your face is radiant. Or Magar Chazir, or you raise pigs, which are also a lucrative business. Magar Chazir, not. Amarle, they said, Tipach Ruchadaitasa, may the spirit of that woman expire. Even one of these 3 things lays be. I'm not allowed to be Mavaribis, not allowed to be Magad Chazir, man. I can't drink wine because it makes you sick. But rather my learning is available to me. In other words, I'm constantly learning and it makes me happy. See, Chachmas Adam Torah Panav. The Chachma person illuminates his face. About Asa Latveria, bless Chamune Tamudei Rabbi Yochanan. The Talmud Rabbi Yochanan saw that a point of hearing, his face is radiant. Amin kum Rabbi Yochanan. He said Rabbi Yochanan, Ashkach Rabbi Avo, Sima, Rabbi Avo must have found a treasure. His face is radiant. Amalon Lama, so he asked them, why? So Amalon says, stop putting the hearing. His face is radiant. Amalon Dima Raisa Chatasham. Maybe you heard a new piece of Torah. And his face gets radiant when he hears a piece of Torah. So Rabbi Avo came to Rabbi Yochanan. Amar Lei, so he said, Ma Raisa Chasta Shamata. Rabbi Yochanan said to Rabbi Avo, what new Torah did you hear? Maybe so happy. Only to Sefta Atika. I heard it. No, I didn't hear it. It wasn't even a new piece of Torah. It was an old Tosefta. But he evidently never heard it before. So the it says he saw new things in this old Tosefta. So it's kind of although it's the Tosefta Atika, but the point is, it was for him. It was a new thing, and because Halei and Rabbi Yochanan said about him, Chachma saw him Torah upon him. Rabbi China said, Luga Doraisa, the log, which is the Torah's measure, is Tumna Atikta de Musaya de Tzibon. It's the old eighth measure of Musaya, which generally translates as cereal, in Tziporin. Rabbi Yana said, Chachim Analah, I know this measure. The base Rabbi Yana, Mechilim Badvash. The house of Rabbi Yana used to use this measure in order to measure honey. Tani, we learned, Chatzi Shminis Tiberionis Yishona. It's in half of the ancient eighth measure in Tiberia. Rabbi Yochanan, Hadar Didon Havos. This was our measure. We used it during our time. V'lama lo amar. Here it says a sikda in the Vilna, but it's obviously a mistake. It's supposed to be a tikda, not a sikda with a samach, but a sikda, yes, but a tikda with a tough typo, obviously. How do you call it the old measure? Because obviously, it's true they evidently they stopped using it already, but so we didn't call it the old measure because, like Rabbi Chena did, because they were still using it in his youth. These times, some say the Hava Zeira V'Rabas, it became smaller, and then it became larger. Zeras, it became smaller, but those Zeras come to Havas, but it wasn't as small as it originally was. So it wasn't exactly the ancient measure. It was a measure which existed during the times of Rabbi Yochanan. It was a smaller measure, but not as small as the ancient measure. So he's saying the ancient measure, that was not the right measure, because that was too small. This one, which we have now, this one's okay. So it's not, yes, it was also the ancient measure, but there was ancient measure small, but that was too small. This one is not as small as that, and this one is okay. Okay, Hamashir he would measure in different manner, not as based on the Shminis, etc., but rather in actual cubic fingers. Rabbi Yossi b'shem Rabbi Yehuda and Bar Pazi, Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Bun b'shem Yeshua said, Etzbaim al Etzbaim, the 2 fingers by 2 fingers, al kos on the cup, Etzba umechza ushlish Etzba. So it's 2 by 2 by an etzba and a half and a third. I'm not good at math. Let's see if the article does it for me. He does 2 by 2 by 1 5/6. Okay. The Babli has a different shear, 2 by 2 by 2.7, which is according to Yerushalmi, it's a 7 1/3 cubic. So from the art scrolls, no, 7 1/3 cubic fingers. According to the Babli, it is 10.8 cubic fingers. Okay, maybe one to share the to share the Chazanish. I wonder if actually could make something of that. He doesn't say anything about that. Okay, that would be an interesting idea to figure out if that actually worked out. Tani. We want Yavesh Kizais. This is liquid measure. When the wine dries up, the amount of solid matter you'll have is the size of a kizais. Steve Rabbi Nassan. Rabbi Kissan Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Mishem B'Yel said, "Aser Rabbi Nassan Rabbi Shimon." Rabbi Nassan says, "Goes to Rabbi Shimon." Rabbi Shimon Mar Pirvis. It's just like Rabbi Shimon said. The sizes are vis. Kain Rabbi Nassan Amar Kshikrash Yebo Gazais. He said that that's the shear of Hotzah for, just as Shimon said, the shear of Hotzah is a revius, so to the, we don't paskin away. We paskin it's a quarter of revius, like we said yesterday. But Shimon said the shear of wine is revius, and Rabbi Nosson said it's the shear which will solidify via bukazais, and the Gemara is saying that it's the same shear. The article even puts in a girsa by Rabbi Nosson, revius, which yikra shear bukazais. It's the same shear. The Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Nosson. All right, halacha base. Muscle kos rishon. They poured the first cup of wine. Beis Hamrim mevarach hayom. First, he made the bracha on the day. V'char barach hayayin. He made the bracha on the wine. So mevarach al hayayin. First, you make the bracha on the wine, and achar barach hayom. And we have parable sugya in brachas. So this sugya which we're about to learn. My time of the Beis Shammai. What's the logic of Beis Shammai? Shakus hayom garm layayin she'avo. The kedusha of the day causes the wine to come, because wine is a chiyuv as a result of the day. Before the wine comes to the table. What's the logic of Beis Hillel? The wine allows you to say kiddush, right? Another reason for Beis Hillel, wine is a much more prevalent bracha. The kedusha is not as prevalent bracha, so tadir b'shein tadir kodim. Rabbi Yosef said, we differentiate from both of them. From Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, we learn yain v'avdallah, by wine and avdallah. Hayayin kodem, the bracha wine comes before the bracha avdallah. Klum time the Beis Shammai. What's the large Beis Shammai? Lo shkusim garmel yain is not because the normally the kedusha by kiddush because kusim garmel yain. The kan here hoil Moshe changed the girsa here. V'avdallah to v'lo avdallah. In other words, the avdallah is not garmel yain shabo because you already made avdallah during davening, right? So therefore, ha yain kodim. Okay, so therefore the avdallah should come first normally, but here you already made avdallah during davening. So therefore, at this point where you're doing the second avdallah, which so the coast comes first. And klum time of the Beis Hillel she'ayin tadir kedusha eina tadira. Well, here too, it says Pnei Moshe klum Beis Hillel shita. So obviously here's the one should come first, right? Hol v'yayin tadira v'avdal eina tadira hayayin kodim. Ramona says the exact opposite. Armana mediva shneim yayin v'avdal avdal kodim. Both of them, how the bracha comes first. Klum time Beis Shammai shekvar yischayv kedusha tzayim is what's the reason Beis Shammai by kiddush because the chayv kedusha achlo ba'yayin. For wine comes, since the Chiv Avdallah comes first. It's true, you would have Mavdil during davening, perhaps first, but it doesn't matter. Chiv Avdallah came first. Right, so therefore, the fact that Yotzerei during davening doesn't matter. The Chiv Avdallah came first, so therefore, this Chiv Avdallah Shlo Bayayin, Avdallah Kademis. Avdallah comes first. Klum Tan Beis Hillel, El Shayayin Goim, L'Kedusha Sayom Te'amer. Okay, and the flip side, they said we're looking not at the Tadir Svar, but the other Svar. He said that wine causes the Kedusha Sayon to be said. The Khan, and here, Hoil, and here the Pnei Moshe again, change the gears again, sorry. However, Ein Hayayin Gorm Davdol Shdeomer, since the wine does not cause Davdol to be said, right, we're Mavdil during davening, independently of the wine, so therefore, Avdol Kedemes, Avdol comes first. Rabbi Zira said me divrei shneim. Where do you hold like Rabbi Yossi or Rabbi Mana? From both of them, Mavdim lo yain. Clearly, see Havdalah works without your wine. The question is how we look at the fact that you can make Havdalah without wine. But does it mean that you already Yotze Havdalah, so therefore wine should come first? We say no, Havdalah comes first, and therefore, well, it's by Havdalah, the Havdalah should come before the wine. But in any event, we say Madiv Shem Mavdim lo yain ve'ema kachin el b'yain. This is we can't make kiddush without wine. He died to Rabbi Zira, and the Gemara says that this is also the opinion of Rabbi Zira, because he says that Mavdil al Shecher, you make Avdol on beer, and on the other hand, you have to go from place to place. If you can't find wine, to go seek out wine for kiddush. So, if in fact you can't find the wine, but the ever can use Shecher and there's a better to actually use the chalas. as well as I gained that here, but clearly there's certainly a tremendous preference for wine for Kiddush, right? Because the Chayil Yain, as opposed to for Abdullah, where no, you don't have wine, you just use beer, or we pass Chamra Medina, but so it's not obviously much less of an emphasis. Amr Rabbi Yossi Rabun Nagin Tamon, the minhag of Bavel. It's interesting because I think to this day in we make Kiddush in Shul and Chutzlaretz and Eretz Yisrael. They don't, but and perhaps it's related to this, although it's not the same thing directly. But in any event, it says the inference will come up in a second. I mean, I said there is no wine. So Shliach Tzibur in Bavel they had an alternative. Shliach Tzibur would be Yori Lifnei Teva v'Omer Bracha Chas Mein Sheva. He would say the Bracha Chas Mein Sheva. V'Chaysim Mekadosh Yisrael Yom HaShabbos. Just interesting, of course. The gears on here that the Mekadosh Yisrael, which we don't do. We just do Mekadosh Shabbos. But they pick up on this gear, so. Yeah, the Alfred Yerushalmi just leaves it shver. It says it's archir, but somebody takes it out. Yeah, so Artzko Pataka brings down the Ras Sibilio's Girsa in Brachos is Mekadosh HaShabbos, not Mekadosh Yisrael B'Yom HaShabbos. Okay, as is our nusach during davening. There's a long discussion here, but the point is that, like I said before, so it sounds like when they didn't have wine, they made the bracha mein sheva, but when they did have wine, they made the kiddush in beis haknesses. That's I said the article has discussion here, but so it sounds like this is in Bavel. They always had the minhag to make the kiddush in beis haknesses, and as you saw, they didn't have the minhag. But when they didn't have the wine, they made the bracha chas mein sheva. But in any event, so the and as I said, let's go have a discussion of it. But in any event, so this would be no court to distinguish between Chutzlaretz and Eretz Yisrael. Okay, that brings us to the next Mishnah, and it brings us, of course, to the top of Pei Dal Amrav. So we'll stop here for today.